Hello, this is Coding Gicha for full-stack developers. In the previous lesson, I covered how to manage packages with the native pack built into Vim. However, since the packages were managed separately with each Git, each package had to be updated separately and the entire Vim configuration could not be managed in an integrated manner. This lesson will explain how to manage Vim packages as a submodule of Git and how to manage the entire .vim directory in an integrated manner with Git. I will check the .vim directory with a tree view. I will check again with for depth so that only the package names are visible in the tree view. Currently, under the .vim directory, I am managing packages with a native pack through the pack directory, but as mentioned earlier, the packages are managed separately with each Git. I will delete the pack directory and add the Vim packages again. In the above dimension, the method of adding packages in the previous time was git clone. Most explanations of managing packages with native pack are methods of cloning each package with git clone. For example, if you add Vim airline as a native pack, you specify the Vim airline address and the location to clone after the git clone command. However, I do not prefer this method. Managing packages as submodules of Git has the advantage of allowing you to manage the .vim directory itself as an integrated Git. First, I will manage the entire .vim directory with git using the git init command. Now, instead of the git clone command, you can add Vim packages using the git submodule add command. In the .vim directory, I will add Vim airline again using git submodule add. I will also add the Rainbow and Vim1 packages that I installed with git clone in the previous time using git submodule add. If you manage the .vim directory with git and manage the packages with git submodules, you can get all the data about the packages with just one git clone, and upgrading the packages becomes much easier. Let's check if the packages are installed well with the tree view. In addition to managing packages in Vim, I will also manage syntax settings in an integrated manner using Git. Directories related to file type syntax are not a single directory, but rather multiple directories are used. I will use the after directory as a file type syntax management directory. All settings under the .vim directory can be moved to the after directory. This is because the settings under the .vim directory are applied, and the settings under the .vim/after directory are ultimately overwritten and applied. I prefer to leave only the pack directory and the after directory under the .vim directory and use them as directories for package management and file type syntax management, respectively. Vim does not support the syntax of Pug template by default. Vim syntax setting files can be downloaded from the vim.org site, and the download files of vim.org can also be searched on vimawesome.com, and you can go directly to the download address. The old name for Pug HTML template was Jade. Jade was changed to the current Pug due to licensing issues. I will search for Jade. It is also uploaded to GitHub as a Vim package, but since the file uploaded to vim.org has been re-uploaded to GitHub as a package, I will download it from vim.org. And in order to manage and configure Vim syntax separately, I will download it from vim.org. If you download it by clicking with the mouse, you will have to go to the working path of the .vim directory, and ultimately you will have to continue working in the terminal, so I will copy the link address instead of downloading. I will download the copied link address with wget in the terminal. Let's unzip the downloaded zip file. When unzipped, several directories will be created. I will delete the downloaded zip file. I will also download the Vim file for Nginx syntax from the vim.org site with wget. I will download the nginx.vim file under the syntax directory. I will set the file type syntax in the filetype.vim file. The extensions of the Nginx configuration files are not specified. I will set the auto command group for Nginx. I will set all files under the /etc/nginx directory to apply the Nginx syntax. In the CLI query browser of MariaDB and Oracle, the extension of the buffer file that processes the query statement is not SQL, so I will set them to apply the SQL syntax based on the path. I installed the Jade-related syntax earlier, so I will set pug to apply the same syntax as Jade. I have set up file type syntax settings in the after directory under the .vim directory and have built them so that they can be managed in an integrated manner with Git. I will also move the .vimrc file to the .vimrc directory so that it can be managed in an integrated manner with Git. Since I changed the .vimrc file to .vim/vimrc.vim, I need to create a symbolic link. I will check the entire structure of the .vim directory in the tree view. With this, I have built it so that not only the packages in the .vim directory, but also various settings can be managed in an integrated manner with Git. It is okay to manage the .vim directory locally with Git, but if you do not manage it in a distributed manner with a remote Git server, you will have to repeat the current process to install the Vim packages and set them up again for each new environment. If you create a Git repository and manage it as a repository, you can simply clone it in a new environment and the Vim configuration you have been using will be set up as is. I will create a Git repository that manages the .vim directory using the GitHub service. I will use a name that makes it easy to recognize that it is a repository for Vim settings. I will set a private repository. Let's set the Git branch as the main. Let's add the remote Git server address created in GitHub. If you use multiple accounts on the Git server of the same domain, authentication problems may occur. If you specify the username in front of the domain address, you can prevent conflicts. When setting up account information in Git, even if it's inconvenient, if you set it by repository rather than globally, account conflicts will not occur. If you set the credential helper to store, the password you check each time will be saved and processed automatically. Now, the preliminary work for managing with a remote Git server is complete. Let's add the newly worked files in Vim to Git. The Git commit is only reflected locally. You must run git push to reflect it on the remote Git server. Since Vim configuration is applied by account, the current settings will not be applied when using the sudo command with root privileges. The root account's home directory must also be set to the same .vimrc and .vim directory. First, let's delete the .vimrc and .vim directories of the root account. Let's create a symbolic link to the .vimrc and .vim directories so that the same settings are reflected. Now, when you open a file with Vim in the root account, the same Vim configuration will be applied. If you manage the Vim configuration in this way with Git, future Vim configurations can be configured with the same settings by simply cloning them from Git. If the Vim configuration is not yet set, I will also explain the process of cloning the Vim configuration from a remote Git repository. To make Vim as it is in its initial state, I will delete the .vimrc file in the .vim directory. For both the root account and the general login user account, I will delete the .vimrc file in the .vim directory in the home directory. If you open the .bashrc file with Vim, it will be changed to the initial state. Since the configuration of Vim is managed on the remote Git server, you can just run git clone command to clone the configuration you have been using without having to set it up from the beginning. If you use multiple accounts on the Git server of the same domain, authentication problems may occur. If you specify the username in front of the domain address, you can prevent conflicts. For the reasons mentioned above, I will set the Git account settings by repository instead of globally. If you set the credential helper to store, the password that is checked each time will be stored and processed automatically. Let's create a symbolic link for the .vimrc file for the logged-in user. Let's create a .vim directory and a .vimrc file for the root user as a symbolic link. If you run git status in the .vim directory, you can see the status of Git, which manages the entire Vim configuration. You can check the entire list and status of packages with git submodule status. The minus sign means that the submodule has not been initialized yet. In other words, the submodule directory is empty. Let's check it with the tree view. I ran it with 4 depth to view only the package name in the tree view, but I will run it without the depth option to check if there are files in the directory of the package name. The package directory is empty. This is because submodules are not received when git clone is performed. You can receive them with git submodule update. Let's check the tree structure again. All the files in the package directories have been received. Let's open the .bash rc file again with vim. The file was opened with the settings applied to vim reflected. Let's also open the .vim rc file with vim. In fact, all the previous settings are set as they are. .vimrc is a symbolic link file of the .vim/vimrc.vim file. Since the .vimrc file is a symbolic link, modifies to .vimrc will also modify the .vim/vimrc.vim file. In other words, modifies to .vimrc can be immediately reflected to the remote git server with commit and push, and updated from the remote git server with pull. You can check the changed vim files in the local with git status. You can update to the vim files that were finally reflected to the remote git server with git pull. You can check the local status of the packages with git submodule status. The submodules that need initialization are marked with a minus sign, but since git submodule update was run, all the minus signs have disappeared. You can update packages with git submodule update. If a new package was added when you received it with git pull, the package will be empty, just like when you git cloned it. It is recommended to use the init option when running git submodule update. If you manage vim packages and configuration environments in an integrated manner with Git, you can immediately build the previous settings just by cloning the Git repository, which is quite convenient. However, if you are not familiar with Git commands, you may feel a bit uncomfortable. It is also cumbersome to go to the .vim directory and run Git-related commands. Next time I will introduce Vimy, which allows you to easily manage the Vim configuration. With Vimy, you can easily and quickly manage the Vim configuration even if you are not familiar with Git commands. Thank you for watching.